All right, so welcome to today's session. So this is a continuation of yesterday's session, whereby we are currently working on some practice exercise questions on topic number 5, where we talked about working with Python libraries and modules. We were doing some questions here, and we did up to number 4. So we are going to start from number 5. All right. And once we are done with the 4 remaining questions, I have posted some few more practice questions, not related to Python libraries and modules, but general questions. All right. So in here, we are required to, this is a NumPy Array Operation, whereby we are supposed to develop a Python script that uses the NumPy library to create two arrays and perform element-wise addition and multiplication. All right, so we mentioned bits of how to work with NumPy. So let's do that demo. All right, so in here we can declare the first array, and before then we need to import NumPy. Import NumPy as np. All right, then we can talk about array1. So in here we have np dot array. Then in here we should pass in a list. All right, so I can just have random array 2, 5, 7, and 9. Can have 10. Then array2 here. So basically the question has not given us the arrays to use. So it's for us to, to come up with the two arrays. So in here can also have np.array. Then I pass in another list. So you can have 3, 4, 7, 8, and 11. All right. So once I define the two arrays in here, then we are supposed to perform element-wise addition and multiplication. All right. So to do an addition of the two arrays, we can simply talk of array1 plus array2. All right. So if you so wish, you can assign them to a variable or just print the result. Right. So I just talked of some array. Then in here I can simply print the sum array, which again is the sum of these two arrays that we have defined here. All right. So to execute this, right, so we get this new array here. Again, if we try to do 2 plus 3, that's 5. 5 and 4, that's 9. 7 and 7, 14, and all that. All right. So for multiplication, I can just do it here. Let me call it multi-array. Then I talk of array1 multiplied by array2. All right. Then again, can just come in here and print multi-array. Then I can comment this one out. So when we multiply two arrays, of course, it will match each and every number with the same index. So the question is, what would happen if one of the length of one array is, does not match the length of the other one? So let me add another element here. Let's see what we get. Right? So see what we have. A value error. Operands could not be broadcasted together with shapes 6 and 5. So of course, for you to do multiplication on any two arrays, they must be of the same shape. Or in other words, they should have an equal number of elements. All right. So what about addition? Let's give it a try for addition. That's for multiplication. Let's try out for addition. All right, so we still get the same thing. So in case you want to perform any of these operations, just ensure that the shape is the same. All right, otherwise you get such an error. All right, so let's now move on to question number 6. All right, so question number 6. So in here we are supposed to create custom module named calculator.py with functions for addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. Then we should import and use this module in another script. So we should create some custom modules named calculator.py with these functions. So I'll create a new file here, name it calculator.py. All right. Then create some functions. I'll create some 4 functions. All right. So in case, let me just paste this one here. All right. In case you have forgotten how to create a function, remember we talk of define, that is def. Then give your function a name. And remember, we said that the name should make some sense. All right. Then have those parentheses. So for instance, we want to add 2 numbers. Okay. So in here, we can pass the 2 numbers, num1 and num2. All right. We terminate that with a full colon. All right. Then we talk of return the sum of num1 and num2. All right. So this should be num. Okay. Let me do this. All right. So that's for addition. I think I can just still copy and paste this and use it for the other operations. And of course, when you are working on a big, say a big application, and it will be managed by somebody else, or even if it's you, please be sure to add some comments so that it becomes easy for whoever is to maintain your application is able to, to understand very quickly what the function was meant to do. All right, so that's for subtraction. So I can just have minus there. Then we have multiplication. Then we have division. Have division here. All right. So okay. So of course I need to change this. Then this should be division. All right. So this is how to define a function. I mean, this is the skeleton of how a function looks like. Whatever functions that we defined here, we are now going to go ahead and import them to our working file as modules. All right. So we are going to talk about from calculator. All right. We need to import. So we can import addition, comma, subtraction. Is it subtraction? Then we have multiplication and division. All right. So this is one of the ways that we can do that. And of course, I'm also going to demonstrate the other way so that we can use any that we are comfortable in using. All right. So again, if you just want to add some 2 numbers, you just call addition and then pass your 2 numbers in here. All right. And again, remember, we said that if you have a return statement here, then be sure to print. Otherwise, you'll not get anything on the console. So let's print this. All right. So the same thing. And of course, we can simply just print that, or print it as a string. All right. So let me just format it this way. Have that F. Then let me just talk of that. Okay. All right. So no need to do that, but I can just simply mention addition, then pass in those curly brackets. All right. So that at least you can distinguish the output of addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. So again, in here, can talk about subtraction, and of course, I also need to mention it here. All right. Then this should be multiplication. Multiplication. And finally, we have division in here. All right. So by doing this, we suppose our module should work as expected. So let's see. All right. So addition 3 and 5, we know that is 8. When we subtract, that is 3 minus 5 minus 2. Multiplication 3 by 5, 15, and 3 divide by 5. All right. So that's simply how to approach this question. All right. So the other approach, instead of maybe importing each and every module in here. So let me just, okay, I'll reuse this, but again, I'll comment it out first. All right. So I'll talk of import calculator. All right. So in this case, we import everything that is in the calculator module. All right. Then I can do that, but since we have imported calculator, then we need to call calculator in each and every operation that we are doing. Again, the word calculator, it's a wrong one. So how about if we talk of import calculator as calc? Then in here, we can pass calc instead of calculator. All right. So once we do that, we can run our program again and we get the same output. All right. So it's for you to decide if you want to import everything from the main module. You can do that. Alternatively, if you only want to import the sub modules that you require, then you can do exactly as we have done here. All right, so let's now move on to question number 7. All right, so number 7. So number 7 talks about this is about dependency management, and so the question reads, what is the purpose of a requirements.txt file? All right, so we are supposed to create one for a project that requires the request, NumPy, and pandas libraries. All right. So basically, we said in our previous session that a requirements.txt file will contain the libraries that are required for a particular project. All right. So in case I am building an application here, and it requires, say, these libraries. Before shipping this application or sharing it with my colleague to try from their end, we are supposed to share with them the code to the application together with a requirements.txt file. All right. So I'll first respond to this question and have a quick recap of how to go about managing the dependencies or libraries for each and every project. All right. So what this means is we just need to create a file, requirement.txt. We already have it here, Then in here, we are supposed to populate it with these three libraries. All right. So for now, we can just paste them in like that. But of course, they should not be comma separated. We should have them in that format. Again, remember, if these were fetched directly from, say, a virtual environment, they should bear the versions, because, say, the application that we are currently working on might be working as expected, say using version 1.2.0, all right? And should you update that or use any other version, then you might find that that application does not work as expected. So it's always advisable to maintain the versions of these libraries, right? And of course, it's always also advisable to update them whenever there is an update, but you should, of course, test to confirm that your application is working as expected whenever you do such updates. All right. So basically, this is simply how this question wanted us to do. To just create a requirements.txt file and populate it with some dependencies in here. All right. So let me just do a recap of the concept of virtual environment and why we need it. All right. So remember we said that these libraries may be working with uh, um, this application we are working on here, hello.py. Okay. So in case we start working with hello2.py, this may need to, higher versions of request, NumPy, and pandas. Okay, so if we were to install these libraries to the global Python environment, then we will always have those conflicts whenever we start working on new projects. Because, say, an old project requires old versions of those libraries. Newer project requires newer versions. So we are not going to, every time we want to come up with a new project, to delete the old libraries and update them. Then when we want to revert back to the old one, we again downgrade. So that's not the best approach. And that's where the concept of virtual environment comes in. All right. So what virtual environment does is that, say, when we want to work with hello.py, that's our project, we create a dedicated virtual environment. All right, whereby we are going to store the libraries for this project alone. Okay. Then, if we go ahead and start a new project, hero2.py, we again create another virtual environment and install the dependencies that we require for this particular project. So these dependencies may or may not be the same versions, or even they may even be more than those that we used in our first project. All right. So should we want to update the versions of libraries on our second project here, then that happens without affecting the functionality of our first project. All right. So just a quick demo. In this case, I want to create a virtual environment that we are going to use to execute this application here. All right. So we said that on your either on your terminal or on your CMD, just talk of Python in case you are using Python or Python 3, whichever. Then we have -m. Then we have venv. All right. Then this should be constant. Of course, this might vary in case you are working with Python without these three. Then in here, you need to give your virtual environment a name. All right. So it's very common to find venv or env just any name. But in this case, because I want to, to dedicate this virtual environment to this project, just want to call it hello. All right. So just watch, a folder will be created here. All right. So a virtual environment has been created in here. Okay. So for us to execute this program here or this application, I want to activate this virtual environment. All right. So to activate virtual environment, we said this one varies depending with the operating system that you are using. All right. So for Linux, I'll talk of source, then I'll mention the name of my virtual environment, then I'll have bin, and then I'll have activate. All right. And I'll press enter. So in here, we see there is a difference. So we see our virtual environment has been activated. All right. So this will apply for those on Linux and for those on Mac. So for those on Windows, this will vary slightly, and it will be like we have the name that we have given our virtual environment. So then we have a backslash, then we have scripts, then we have backslash again, then we have, I think we should have activate as well. All right. So this tells you something. So this is for those on Windows. This is for those on Linux and Mac. So this tells you something that whenever you want to ship this application, if you copy the virtual environment directory together with your code and say, for instance, in case I share this project with somebody working on Windows, all right, they will not be able to activate the virtual environment simply because there is no scripts folder in here. All right, so they just have to create their own, and the structure of this directory will rely on the operating system. All right. Right. So I hope that's clear. So let me try to do what? Okay. I want to import some dependencies here, which I'm sure they haven't been installed in our virtual environment yet. So I can talk of import Flask. All right. Can also talk of import pandas as PD. Also talk of import NumPy as NP. So basically, these are just demo libraries. All right. I just want to show you how we need to work with a virtual environment. All right. So let me try to execute this program as it is. So I'll have Python. So in this case, while sitting on this, I can simply use Python. It will work. Then I'll have hello.py. All right. So see what we got. So no module named Flask. So again, I also want to show you how to go about installing third-party libraries. All right. So third-party libraries are supposed to be installed using pip, which again is Python package manager. All right. So when you get such an error when executing your Python application, then you just need to install this as long as it's a module that exists. All right. So we just have pip install, sorry, pip install Flask. All right. Press enter and give it time. All right. Clear the screen. Try again to execute that. All right. We see pandas is not there as well. So we talk of pip install pandas. All right. Then give it time. Taking a bit of time, but let's see how that goes. All right. So again, if we try to execute it again, of course, we don't get any output because there was nothing to print or, let us go back to day one training. All right, so if we execute our program again, we see error. All right, so this has worked. All right, so I want now to share this application with a colleague. Okay, but before then, I need to make sure that I add the dependencies for this application to a requirements.txt file. So for now, I can't just delete this file. Let me first of all delete it. All right. So I mentioned that we want to share this application with our colleague. And before we do that, we need to populate the requirements.txt file. All right. So the first thing to check, we can try checking the list of the libraries or modules that exist on our virtual environment. So this is one of the ways of checking that. Can do pip freeze, and of course we see there are so many libraries here, or so many modules. So what happens is that when you install, say, pandas, it will install others as well. All right, so probably pandas came in with NumPy and some others. The same way with Flask, installing Flask must have added others as well. So we are just going to, to push this to the requirements.txt file. All right. So to push those dependencies into the requirement.txt file, this is how to do it. All right. Do that. So a file will be created here and populated with all those modules. All right. So there is something that we mentioned. Seeing that we did not install all these dependencies. All right. There are times that, say, if we try installing all these dependencies as they are, sometimes you may get errors. All right. Simply because maybe this zip or any other that we did not install directly is having some conflict somewhere. So in case you're able to do a cleanup, you can do a cleanup and only leave those modules that you installed directly. Those others will be installed when the main ones are installed. Again, if it's too much work for you, just leave it and trust that it will work as expected. All right. So in here, I have shared this application with my colleague together with the requirements.txt file. All right. So let me deactivate this virtual environment. Just type in deactivate in there. All right. So this colleague of mine goes and creates a virtual environment on their end. And in this case, let me do that. Python 3 -m v and v. So in this case, I'll create hero 2. All right. I'll create hero 2. Then I'll go ahead and activate my virtual environment. All right. So if I try to execute this application, I have Python. I can just simply use Python. Then hello.py. All right. So we see we are not able to execute this program because we do not have the dependencies of this application installed. All right. So to install dependencies that have are in the requirement.txt, we simply run one command that will install everything. All right. So this is how to go about it. We have pip install, we have -r, then requirements.txt. All right. And press enter and give it time. So in here, you might get those errors that I'm talking about. And should you get them, at least once you interact with these modules, you will be aware of those that you never installed directly. So you can just do a cleanup, remove one by one as the errors appear here. All right. So this one was a success. So no need to do a cleanup. Then we can try executing our program again, and we see that it has worked. All right. So that was just a quick recap of how to go about creating a virtual environment, uh, going about creating a requirement.txt file, populating it with the necessary libraries and dependencies and all that. And of course, if you are to share that with your colleague, always be sure to include a requirements.txt file. So let's now move on to the next question. So we have done number 7 and done a little bit of elaboration of that. Then number 8. Let's see number 8, what we can do about number 8. All right, so in here, create a virtual environment, okay, this is about creating a virtual environment. We just demonstrated that. Then we should create a virtual environment for a project and install Flask library. Then write a simple Flask application that displays hello world. All right. So basically we are sitting on a virtual environment. We are not gonna create another one. Then we are aware that one of the modules or libraries within this virtual environment, we have Flask there. And as I mentioned, we can talk about pip freeze. Right? Sorry. So we see Flask is one of the libraries in here. All right. Then in case you forget pip freeze, pip list will also do as good. It will also give us a list of those dependencies in here. We have Flask. So actually this is all we need for this question. But again, as I said, if you install Flask, it will carry along its brothers and sisters. So this is for those who will take the backend web development journey. So I'll just type in, I will not explain as much. So you talk of from Flask, we need to import Flask, I think should be Flask, right? Okay, so this should start from there. All right, then in here, I can just declare an app, and I'll talk of Flask, pass in that. All right. So for the backend web developers, this is one of the popular libraries that you can use to up your Python game. All right. So I can have route. So this is to define. I'm sure we have all interacted with the websites at some point. So I'm sure you have seen home, contact us, about us, and all that. So this is the home page. All right. So then again, the concept of defining functions, we have them here. All right. So everything we have already covered will apply at some point. Okay. So then in here we talk of return, and we are going to return hello world. All right. Then there is a block that we need to add here. Talk of if the name is equals to main. All right. So don't worry so much about the new syntax that you are seeing. For now, we can set debug is equals to true. Maybe not necessary now, but can just have it that way. All right. Then let's try to execute this program. Right. So we get some output here, and we are told that it's currently running on this localhost URL here and the given port 5000. So if we come in here, do that, we get hello world. All right. This is simply what was expected of us. So for those who will take this direction, this will be your starting point. So that is it in working with Python libraries and modules. They are basically random questions. So the first question talks about we need to write a Python program to find out what version of Python you are using. All right. So basically, you may be interested to know the version of Python that you are using for now. All right. So in that case, you can make use of the terminal to check that, either the terminal or command prompt, that is CMD. All right. So in here, can talk about Python. Try to check that. Python version, it's not there. All right. Can try Python 3, right? And I get it there. All right. So that's the command. Alternatively, I also believe this should work. Python 3. All right. Okay. Okay. Perfect. So this one as well should work. Okay. So in case you are to do a program, basically we have just typed that on either CMD or terminal. So how would that program look like? Let me check in here. Okay, import OS, then from os.system, if I talk about Python 3 version. All right. All right, interesting stuff, eh? So again, there is a module we talked about OS. Within the OS module, there is a function called system. So in here, I believe we can be able to execute the commands that we execute either on terminal um, or the command prompt. All right. So see, in here, I talked of Python 3 version, right? So let me try to have it here. Actually, let me do away with the print because we expect that the OS should return something. If it doesn't work, we use print again. Okay, actually, that's not what I want. I want to execute this program. All right, so this is simply how to approach that question. The second question, we want to have a Python program to display the current date and time. All right, so okay, we are still evolving around modules. So in here, we talk about we want to import date time. All right, but remember, we said that the best thing is to have from date time, import date time, then time now. Let's talk of date time now. We can talk about date time dot now. All right, then we go ahead to print time now. All right, so we see today is on 26th and it's 8:38 p.m. All right, 20:38. We are going to see some of the things that you can do with date and time because it's another crucial thing, whether you are dealing with data or you are dealing with backend for websites. Date time is a very crucial data type that you need to know how to work with. All right, so number 3 here requires us to write a Python program that calculates the area of a circle based on the radius entered by the user. This is a repetition of a question we had, I think, yesterday or the days before. So remember functions, how to do a function. All right, so we have define area of a circle. Of course, this is a name that you give. So it's not necessarily that you'll always give it this name, but just give it a name that makes sense. All right. Then in here you can define you can create a function that will accept some parameter. In here you can talk about radius. All right. Then remember, so in here let's talk about we are talking about functions. but also let us talk about functions as well, whereby we are going to import the math module. And if you have been keen, you should be aware why we imported the math module, right? Remember the area, the formula of getting the area of a circle. We have area is equals to pi, we usually talk of pi r squared. All right. So that's why we imported this math. Alternatively, we would simply have used 22/7. All right. But let us appreciate the presence of all these modules. All right. So I can just talk of the area being math.py. All right. Then we multiply by the radius squared. Remember, squared uh, we do raise to power 2 using this double asterisk. All right. So instead of doing that, we have the math module at our disposal. We can have math.power, right? Whereby we pass in the radius, then we want to raise it to power 2. All right. Then we return the area here. All right. Then we want to get this area input from the user. So in that case, we want to have radius, and we want to get it from the user. Enter the radius. All right. I've already made a mistake. I hope somebody is already seeing that. Then once you get the area, we want to call this function here, right? Because this function cannot be executed without us calling it. So to call a function, we said that just call the name. In case you need to pass in any parameter, please do that. All right. So our function has a parameter, so we must pass it in. All right. So the question is, anybody able to identify something we missed out here? All right. So let's get an error together, then work it out. All right. So let's see. So once we execute our program, we are required to input the radius out of 10, right? I get an error simply because if you remember something, anytime you get an input from the user, this will always come in as a string. Even if you did input a number, it will come in as a string, and that's why you get type error. It must be a real number, not a string. All right, so we have an option of converting it to integer or float, but for reasons we all know, if we talk of integer and say the radius is 10.5, then we are going to roll some value. All right. So the best thing is to have it as float, right? So that we can accommodate the decimal points as well. All right. Execute that 20. All right. So again, we called the function. The function is supposed to return. Doesn't know whether it's supposed to return on the console or where it's supposed to do that. So we should instruct it to print that on the console. All right, radius 20, and there we go. All right, so that's simply how to handle question number 3. All right, then number 4, we want to write a Python program that accepts the first name, the user's first and last name, and prints them in reverse order with a space between them. All right, so this question depends on how you think about it, because it's not a very clear question, but anyway, let us learn something from it, because we do not need to overthink. All right, so we can take input from the user requesting for the first name. All right, enter first name. Can just have that, copy it paste it there. I have L name. Then in here, talk about last name. So if I execute this program at this point, it will require us to import the first name and the last name. All right. Then the question goes further to tell us that we should print them in reverse order. So basically, the first understanding, of course, I said this question will you will approach it depending with how you understood it. So my approach for now, I'll be printing the last name. I can even send this person some greeting, but I'll start with the second name, then the first name. All right. So can then print. All right. We do the formatting. Remember. Then I'll talk of hi, and I'll start with L name. All right. Then space F name. All right. So without complicating it, that should be the approach. My first name is first, second name is, or last name is second. All right. So hi, second, first. All right. So that's simply how I can approach it for now. I'll request this user to enter their name, and I'll talk about the input. All right. Tell them to enter your first name and last name. All right. So let's see. So if this comes, let me print name. Print name. Let's see what we get. F name, L name. All right. So if we get this as a string, okay. I want to show you. I want to remind you something that we had mentioned some times back. We see if it will apply here. So if I have my name as F name and L name, and we are supposed to do it in reverse. So do you remember something we did like this? All right, so it reverses the name and the letters as well, so that we start from E, M, A, E, M, A, and L, and all that. So that's what I want to do here. So then I just want to print name, do that, and that. All right, so do that, F name, L name, right? It reverses the name and the letters as well. Right? So basically, this question wasn't so clear, but at least we have seen two ways in which you can attempt it. All right? So let's do this as the last question, whereby write a Python program that will accept a sequence of comma-separated numbers from the user and generate a list and a tuple from those numbers. All right? So number 5 here tells us that we should accept some numbers. Okay, input, enter some numbers. All right. So again, these numbers, if we try to convert them to float or integers or those, we will get errors because this user is expected to. Let me just print here. Let me print what? Let me print numbers. Let's see. Let's see what we get. 1, 2, 3. Right? So see, but then they are not as they appear here. They appear so clean here, but as you see them, these are strings. All right. So again, let's see how we can be able to do this. All right. Let me pull this. You can be able to see them clearly here. 2, 3. All right. Then we print rs. All right. Okay. All right. They look clean. How about if I try to print them as a list? How bad do they look like? Okay, so if we convert them to a list, that's how they look. All right. How about if I talk of x empty list, then I talk of for I in rs x dot append I. Anyway, just pardon me. Let me see if this one works. So if I have x, all right. So even if I have x, they still look this way. All right, let's do a cleanup here because they look like this, but they look like this. So this is what we want to do a cleanup so that we can have a clean list of numbers. All right. So if they're gonna come in looking like this, so again, then in here I can simply convert them to a list then so that we are sure that they'll look like this. All right. So the next thing that we can do to this thing is that I can just have a for loop. All right. So let me first um, define an empty list here. Let me call it clean numbers because they should be clean, right? Then I have for I in numbers. All right. So we want to check if I is equals to 1. I first of all want to remove these things here. All right. So I'll check if I is that thing. Then I should do myself good by removing numbers dot remove I. All right. Then all right, let me for now print numbers. Let me see if it will be a little bit clean. Let me do that. 1 2 3 4 5. All right, so we see it's now a bit clean. All right, then we at least need to make these two, to make this list look like it should have integers and not strings. All right, so let me see what I can plug into this for loop. And if I can't do that for now, right, if that, right, then let me see if I can define another for loop here for j in numbers. Then clean numbers dot append. I want to convert the j's to integers. All right, looks like it's a bit complex, but I hope it works. So let me just confirm, then I can go back there, try to elaborate that. 3 6 8 9 1. All right, we get errors here. All right, then this, let me just move it back one step. So this should be executed once this has done removing all these commas. So for j in numbers again, so I should have clean numbers, then append integers j. All right, let me try to execute that again. 2 3 4 5 6. All right, so there we go. We have been able to do that cleanup. So in here, the first thing that we are doing is to do a for loop to go through these entries. All right, once we go through the entries, we remove this. So we are able to do an if check. All right, so once we remove them, then our list will only contain strings. All right, numbers that are strings. Let me use that time. So once we have numbers that are string, then it becomes again easy for us to quickly do a cleanup for those numbers. So again, we loop through those numbers. All right. One thing we are sure that these are numbers, only that they have the quotations appended onto them, which now makes them strings. Right. So what we do, we convert them to integers, then we append them to this empty list that we created here. all right? And of course, then print that, all right? So let me have f do this, can have that, then do that, all right? I do that. Then I also want to print, I want to convert that list to a tuple as was required by the question, tuple. So I'll have those, then I'll pass in tuple and I'll call green numbers. I hope you have seen what I've done there. All right. So I simply converted, I hope you all remember how to convert a list to a tuple. You just call the tuple function and pass in your list in there. So that's simply how to go about that. All right. And I hope that has been a good refreshment. So please find some time to enjoy number 6, 7, 8, and of course, find more and more questions and try to jog around your mind so that you can be able to appreciate everything that you have learned, and also try to, the more practice you do, the more you understand